awaken the plot at the same time as my sister. We turned out to be supporting characters in the novel. My sister rushes out in a hurry. I panic, thinking she's going to snatch the 600 million lottery. But my sister threatens me fiercely, dare to compete with me for the male lead, and I'll kill you. We've awakened to the plot, yet still thinking about men. Chapter 1. Seeing me about to leave, my sister Elisa's face darkens. She looks at me warily. Are you trying to compete with me for Carter? Carter is the male lead in this world, a cold campus heartthrob, the dream lover of countless girls. In the novel, the male lead initially likes the female lead because she saved his life. When the male lead was crossing the street while looking at his phone, he almost got hit by a car, but the female lead saved him. Suddenly, Elisa turns fierce, shoving me to the ground, warning, Carter can only fall in love with me. If you dare to compete with me, I'll kill you. My mom is watering the plants outside and didn't hear clearly what we were saying, but she sees Elisa pushing me down. She doesn't blame Elisa, instead scolds me sharply. Alice, why are you fighting with your sister? Your sister is going to be a pianist in the future. If you hurt her fingers, can you take responsibility? Mom, I'm leaving. After pushing me down hard, Elisa shows no remorse, greets my mom, and hastily gets into a taxi to leave. I get up, blow on my bleeding palms grazed by the ground, and say nothing. Seeing me silent, my mom gets angry first. She throws the spray bottle in her hand towards me. Alice, I'm talking to you, what's with this attitude? The spray bottle almost hits my head. Fortunately, I've honed my dodging skills since I was young. Alice, you troublemaker, stop right there. Where are you going? Not doing the chores? Being ignored by me, my mom gets even angrier, looking around to find something to throw at me. Mind your own business. I walk out without hesitation. My mom is dumbfounded. This is the first time I've openly defied my mom. I've wanted to do this for a long time, but I didn't have the confidence before. But now, I'm going to be a rich woman. Chapter 2. Both Elisa and I are my parents' biological children, but my parents' attitudes towards us are two extremes. Elisa has always been like a child from another family. She is beautiful, learned to play the piano from a young age, and has won many awards. She is lively, sweet in speech, good at winning people's hearts, and has always been the favorite of my parents. While I am introverted, quiet, and sometimes unwilling to speak for a long time. In addition to burying my head in books, I don't have any outstanding talents. When I was 5, Elisa pushed me down the stairs, and I ended up in the hospital for 3 months, costing my parents a lot of money. As a result, my parents became even more displeased with me, calling me a money-losing burden. My parents' favoritism is extreme. Since childhood, any good things always go to Elisa first, and I can only choose what Elisa doesn't care about. Dirty and tiring household chores are always left for me to do. My mom self-righteously says, your sister is going to be a pianist in the future. Her fingers are for playing the piano, not for doing housework. In middle school, I envied Elisa for playing the piano and wanted to learn too. Without a second thought, my mom refused. What nonsense are you making up? Do you think you can compare to your sister? She's a genius, and you clearly lack any artistic talent. Learning would just be a waste of money. The extent of my parents' favoritism has made me doubt countless times if I am truly their biological child. But unfortunately, I've come to know through the plot that I am indeed their biological child. At the same time, I have come to terms with it, realizing that such biased parents probably only exist in novels. Chapter 3. I quickly arrived at the lottery store. In the novel, the author wrote a scene where the female lead goes to buy a lottery ticket and narrowly misses the 6 billion jackpot due to a single number difference. Having read the plot, I naturally know the correct winning numbers. After awakening to the plot with Elisa, I was particularly worried that she might also come to buy a lottery ticket. But it seems I was mistaken. Elisa is just someone with love on her mind. She probably skipped over this minor plot and is only focused on how to make the male lead fall for her. Coming out of the lottery store, I felt like I was floating, walking on air. This feeling is incredible. Even after deducting taxes, I still have 500 million. 500 million, oh 500 million, a sum that can never be spent in a lifetime. Chapter 4. When I returned home, my parents and Elisa were having dinner. Seeing me enter, my mom glared at me. "You are not allowed to eat today. How dare you defy your mother, you unfilial daughter." I silently went back to my room, followed by the sound of my mom throwing plates. "This unfilial daughter even has an attitude. She almost hurt Elisa today." Back in my room, I weakly fell back onto my hard bed, feeling drained. The joy of making a big fortune was instantly diluted the moment I entered this home. My room was originally a storage room, very small, and close to the living room. Lying on the bed, I could hear my parents and Elisa chatting in the living room. The three of them were chatting and laughing, a truly harmonious family. And I was just superfluous. I heard Elisa proudly telling my parents, "Mom, I did something very important today. Our classmate Carter almost got hit by a car because he was looking at his phone, and I saved him." My dad immediately exclaimed, "Elisa, is he the son of that Smith company?" My mom also got excited. "Elisa, you are so lucky. That's a wealthy family. Take this opportunity, make Mr. Smith like you, and once you become the lady of the Smith family, we'll be rich." "Mom and Dad, I will definitely become Carter's wife and make you rich." It's clear that Elisa is very confident. She knows the plot. As long as she takes the female lead's path ahead and captures the male lead, there shouldn't be any problem. Listening in my room, I was quite speechless. Knowing the plot, Elisa's method of becoming wealthy is actually to marry a wealthy man. If she had paid attention to relevant business information while watching the plot, making money would be easy. Elisa is my good daughter. She can play the piano, studies well, and is ready to give us a good life. Not like that money-losing burden who only makes me angry all the time. If the fortune teller hadn't said this child was a boy, I wouldn't have given birth to her. My mom's voice was loud, and I knew she was saying it on purpose for me to hear. Chapter 5. Later, Elisa actually came to my room. "What do you want?" I can't even consider Elisa as a plastic sister. Since childhood, she has bullied me and treated me as her servant, relying on her parents' favoritism. Elisa glared at me darkly. "I'm here to seriously inform you that the male lead, Carter, is mine. You're not allowed to catch his attention." She was still concerned. After all, we both knew the plot. But she didn't know that when I watched the plot, my focus wasn't on the romantic entanglement of the male and female leads. I memorized everything that could change my destiny. "Alice, did you hear me?" I smiled. "Stop calling me. I was scared by a dog when I was a child. I'm afraid of shadows coming back." Elisa's face immediately changed, looking as unpleasant as if she had eaten something bitter. She couldn't believe it. "You dare to insult me?" Elisa snapped and instinctively raised her hand to slap me. I instantly grabbed her hand, staring at her fiercely. "Elisa, I'm not interested in your male lead. Stop bothering me." Having done chores since I was little, my grip was much stronger than an average girl's. Elisa couldn't struggle at all, and it seemed like my current demeanor scared her. She didn't dare to make a sound even if it hurt. When I let go of her, "Humph, acting all high and mighty. How could you not be interested in Carter, such a handsome guy?" "But I'm not afraid. I'm prettier than you, better at pleasing people. You can't compete with me." Elisa walked away with her head held high. Watching her proud figure, I couldn't help but shake my head. How pitiful. Would she die without a man? Chapter 6. I really am not interested in the male lead. Before knowing the plot, I did have a good impression of him because of his face. But after knowing the plot, I just want to say, stay away from this kind of man. In the plot, the male lead Carter's character is a paranoid, suffering from a serious mental illness. He is easily irritable and violent. In the later part of the novel, he has hit the female lead several times, then pitifully begs for forgiveness, saying it was due to his illness. Relying on his family background, he often bullies other classmates at school, and Elisa and her group of fans would scream. Carter's punching movements are so cool. This punch seems to hit others, but it actually hits my heart. I really want to comment, if he's so cool, why not try punching you? I would stay far away from this domestic violence man. How could I possibly provoke him? Moreover, in the novel, the male lead only knows how to be jealous, have a bad temper, and doesn't study well. Later in the plot, if not for the female lead managing the company for him, the male lead would have probably gone bankrupt long ago. Compared to the male lead's problematic character, the female lead is the perfect goddess. She is beautiful, intelligent, resilient, and kind. It's just that in order to make the two fall in love, the female lead's intelligence is deliberately diminished when she's with the male lead. Elisa and the male lead are a good match. They suit each other very well. Hopefully, they will last forever. Chapter 7. The next day. As soon as I entered the school, I saw Elisa and Carter walking side by side in the campus from afar. This was the first time Carter had such close contact with a girl, causing a sensation, with many people stealing glances. Elisa, who was being watched, seemed to be very shy, but I knew her pretense very well. She was clearly extremely pleased at this moment. In no time, rumors about the two of them spread throughout the school. Elisa became the talk of the town. Just after the morning classes ended, there was a commotion in the corridor outside our classroom. Ah! It's Carter, the heartthrob. Some female classmates were so excited that they fainted directly. I was dumbfounded. All eyes were on Elisa as she stood up slowly and gracefully, speaking in the tone of a real girlfriend. Carter and I have agreed to have lunch together today. This sentence seemed to confirm the rumors. The girls cast envious and jealous looks towards Elisa. Just as I was about to head to the cafeteria to eat, Elisa stopped me at the door, with Carter by her side. This was the first time I met Carter. In the original plot, I was just a passerby with no connection to the male lead. Elisa smiled and introduced, "Carter, this is my little sister Alice, who had a secret crush on you before, haha." Clearly, Elisa wanted to embarrass me publicly. But soon enough, her smile faded, and her expression turned extremely ugly. For some reason, the male lead, Carter, was staring at me with an almost crazy look, as if he had known me for a long time. I finally found you. Chapter 8. Everyone was shocked by Carter's actions. Carter was known as the aloof school idol, and if it weren't for Elisa saving him, there would be no chance for them to be so close. Yet, here was Carter looking at me with such intensity, leaving all the classmates puzzled. Elisa was even more puzzled, as she had intended to show off, but Carter's attention was completely drawn to me. I was quite puzzled too. In my awareness, I had never met Carter before, and in the novel's plot, Carter had never mentioned my name. So why did he seem to recognize me now? Before I could ask, Carter spoke first, his expression passionately fixed on me. "A long time ago, in the hospital, did you give a boy some candy?" As soon as he said that, I understood. In the book, the male lead always had a figure in his heart, a white moonlight, who never appeared, not even a name. This white moonlight was a boy who ran away from home when he was young and hid in the hospital, starving. A little girl gave him candy. Clearly, that girl was me. If Carter hadn't mentioned it now, I wouldn't have remembered at all. Because back then, I not only gave candy to Carter but also to other kids. Once everything became clear, I immediately shook my head. Sorry, I was very poor when I was young and never gave any candy to a little boy. I didn't want any entanglement with this male lead. Seeing my denial, Carter's peach blossom eyes stared at me fiercely. "Are you sure?" My face remained expressionless. "Sure." At that moment, Elisa, who had a dark expression, suddenly spoke up, looking very excited. "Carter, are you talking about Mingcheng Hospital? I stayed there when I was young and gave a little boy candy." Carter then turned to her, frowning, and asked, "What kind of candy?" Elisa hesitated for a moment, probably frantically recalling scenes from the drama she had watched. I suddenly spoke up, as if searching for something. "Where did I put my milk this morning?" Elisa's eyes lit up, and she immediately said, "It's White Rabbit milk candy, my favorite when I was young." Upon hearing this, Carter's expression became excited, and he directly held Elisa's hand, saying, "Elisa, it's really you. I never expected that you not only saved me but also were the little girl who gave me candy when I was young." Elisa was thoroughly enjoying the moment. She sneakily glanced at me with a provocative gaze, as if saying, "See, you can't compete with me." Little did Elisa know that I had just intentionally hinted to her. I wanted to ensure that these two were locked in and wouldn't harm the female lead. Chapter 9. Excuse me, please make way. Because of Carter's appearance, the corridor was crowded with his fangirls, obstructing the passage. A girl with a mushroom haircut and black-rimmed glasses, looking plain on the outside, passed by. Carter, standing in the middle of the hallway holding Elisa's hand, was still immersed in the joy of reuniting with his white moonlight and didn't even glance at the girl. However, Maya's lit up, and I hurriedly went over to help her through the crowd, saying, "Classmate, are you going to eat? Let's go together." No need to say more, this girl was the female lead in the book, named Grace. In the story, Grace was a top student who received a recommendation to a prestigious school in her sophomore year. Initially, Grace had no interaction with the male lead because the female lead's appearance seemed very ordinary. It wasn't until Grace saved Carter that the two of them had a connection. Later on, when Grace revealed her stunning side and amazed everyone, Carter slowly started to develop feelings for the female lead. But at this moment, because Grace's screen time was being stolen by Elisa, Carter was indifferent towards Grace. I acted like a protective mother hen, holding Grace's hand and pushing through the crowd. Once we were out of the teaching building, the crowd finally thinned. Grace was clearly taken aback by my enthusiasm and politely said, "Classmate, thank you." I waved my hand casually and said, "Grace, no need to thank me. It's what I should do." Grace was surprised. "How do you know my name?" I smiled and said, "Grace, you're the top student in our year, I definitely know you." Then I continued, "Grace, I'm Alice, from the next class over, class 2. I want to be friends with you, can we?" It had probably been a long time since someone had been so enthusiastic towards her. Grace quickly accepted my request and said graciously, "Alice, thank you for wanting to be my friend." Our hands clasped together. Fate changed at that moment. Chapter 10. The female lead Grace not only excelled in academics but also had amazing business talent. In the later part of the novel, she helped the male lead save a company on the brink of bankruptcy. Wanting to be friends with Grace, I had selfish motives as well. Firstly, I genuinely didn't want Grace to suffer like in the book, being tortured by the male lead. Secondly, I wanted Grace to help me. Not only was Grace a good learner herself, but she was also great at teaching others. In the novel, Carter was a poor student, but after studying with Grace, his grades improved rapidly. Grace not only taught well but was also great at guessing answers. In the novel, in this year's college entrance exam questions, Grace correctly guessed many key points, directly increasing Carter's score by over 100 points. Without a doubt, I wanted to study with Grace and get into a good university together. Furthermore, I wanted to start a business with her. This time, buying a lottery ticket, I had found a plot hole. Throughout the entire novel, there were very few descriptions of directly making money, so when I start making money later on, it won't be as easy as buying a lottery ticket now. Grace had a business mind, and I had the funds. If the two of us worked together, we would definitely make a mark. As long as we were successful in business, even if Elisa tried to get close to Carter, it wouldn't matter. Chapter 11. After school, instead of going straight home, I went to the lottery center in the city. Sure enough, the lottery ticket I bought actually won. Even after taxes, I still had 500 million. The staff who assisted me mentioned that there were reporters outside wanting to interview me, but I refused. If news of my win were to be exposed now, I could forget about peaceful days. After handling all the procedures, I returned home, and it was already dark outside. I got out of the taxi, my feet touching the ground, feeling a bit lightheaded. Was this what it felt like to be wealthy? But this happiness was quickly shattered. As soon as I entered the house, my mother stormed over angrily, grabbed me harshly by the hand, and said, "Alice, you ungrateful wretch. Your sister has been so good to you, and not only are you ungrateful, but you also want to steal her boyfriend?" Seeing me being scolded, Elisa stood by with a smug smile. My arm was pinched painfully, and instinctively, I pushed my mom aside with force. "Let go." Glancing down, I saw that my mom was truly harsh, the area she pinched had turned purple. I pushed my mom onto the sofa, and at first, she was stunned, then like a rabid dog, she loudly cursed. "You unfilial daughter, not only did you steal your sister's boyfriend, now you dare to lay hands on your own mother, you're really an animal." Watch me today, I'll beat you to death. My mom went crazy, picked up a large porcelain plate from the table and threw it at me. Luckily, I dodged quickly, otherwise being hit by the plate would have definitely hurt for a while. At that moment, the door suddenly opened. My dad had returned. Looking at the chaotic scene at home, he asked, "What's going on?" My mom, fuming, said, "What else could it be? Your precious second daughter has angered me again." My dad glanced at me, his face expressionless, and simply said, "I don't care how you educate the kids, but one thing, don't let outsiders see it. I can't bear that shame." Saying that, my dad went back to his room. My dad was a high school teacher and cared a lot about his reputation. Although my parents were still technically married, they had long lost any affection for each other. They had been sleeping in separate rooms for a long time, and my dad seemed to have a new family outside. My mom didn't dare to divorce because her income sources were all provided by my dad. Unable to confront my dad, my mom often vented her anger on me. She always blamed me, saying that if it wasn't for me, my dad would never have had the chance to cheat. "You brat, get over here." My dad's cold attitude made my mom even angrier. I hid in my room, ignoring my mom's yelling outside, refusing to open the door. I packed up my important belongings, then took the opportunity when my mom wasn't paying attention, and ran away. At first, my mom was stunned, then angrily shouted after me, "Alice, how dare you run away? I'm telling you, if you dare to go out today, don't ever come back to this house." Ignoring the threat, I just kept running. The outside world was vast and boundless. Chapter 12. I've been away from home for half a month now. During this time, I've been staying in a hotel, truly experiencing what it's like to live the life of a wealthy woman. My parents have acted as if they have no daughter like me who ran away from home, showing no concern for me. It's better this way. Having some peace and quiet. 1 month away from the college entrance examination, during this period at school, besides attending classes, I spent most of my time with Grace. Grace is truly amazing. Some of the concepts taught by teachers felt like ancient scriptures to me. But when Grace explains them to me, she always manages to break down the principles in a clear and understandable way. My grades have also improved rapidly. Previously, I could at most aim for a second-tier university, but now in monthly exams, I occasionally touch the first-tier score. By the time of the college entrance examination, with Grace's predictions, the key universities that used to seem out of reach for me can also be within my grasp. Although Grace and I are friends, I didn't let her teach me for free. Instead, I paid her a fee based on time, equivalent to hiring a private tutor. Initially, Grace refused. She felt that as friends, helping each other was the right thing to do. But I told her, people don't live for others. If you make sacrifices for others, you should expect something in return. Whether that reward is money or something else. In the book, Grace is great in every aspect, but she's too kind, always helping others regardless of cost. Sometimes being too kind is not a good thing. When you're too kind, others might take your efforts for granted. Luckily, Grace is a girl who listens to advice. After hearing me out, she slowly started to change. She won't just mindlessly do someone's homework because they say thank you. She's learning to say no. Chapter 13. Because I often frequented hotels, and perhaps due to some gossip spreading, there were rumors circulating in our class about me. During physical education class one day, a few girls gathered together, and one of them said with a serious tone, "Have you heard? Our classmate Alice has been going in and out of hotels recently. I'm telling you, every time she goes into a hotel, she's always with a different man. I heard some of them are as old as her dad." Ew, that's disgusting. These two sisters are like night and day. The older sister is dating Mr. Smith, enjoying endless luxury, but the younger sister is fooling around with men in society. I stood behind them, quietly listening to their conversation. Then, I extended my leg and gave a solid kick to the back of that girl, making her fall flat on her face. She got up abruptly. "Who kicked me?" "Alice, was it you?" I shrugged, indifferent, and said, "Do you have any proof?" "You little brat, slandering good people, I'm going to beat you up." I'm 1.7 meters tall and have been training my body, so the girls in the class were no match for me. The girl I kicked stared at me, gradually lowering her head, not daring to say another word. Chapter 14. Grace also heard similar rumors. One day after her study session, she nervously looked at me and asked, "Alice, did you run away from home?" I nodded, Grace didn't ask me why, she just fell silent for a while and said, "Alice, why don't you come stay at my place? Staying at a hotel can be quite expensive, but if you stay with me, we can study together." I thought Grace made a valid point. So, I agreed. But I told her that if I stayed at her place, I would also pay her accordingly. After spending some time together, Grace understood my personality and didn't refuse. Grace comes from a single-parent family. Her father cheated on Grace's mom when she was pregnant, leading to a divorce. Grace's mom fought for and won custody of Grace through legal battles. However, due to a prenuptial agreement her father tricked Grace's mom into signing before marriage, Grace's mom didn't receive a penny from him after the divorce. Despite this, Grace's mom remained strong, raising Grace on her own all these years without asking her ex-husband for a dime. Chapter 15. The day I went to Grace's house, the three of us had clear roles. I washed the vegetables, Grace cut the meat, and Grace's mom cooked. Grace's mom, "This food is delicious, it's the most flavorful meal I've ever had." "Alice, you have such a sweet tongue, your mom's cooking must be better than mine." Grace's mom thought I was just trying to flatter her. But I was speaking the truth. Although I had just arrived, being here, I truly felt the warmth of a family. I smiled and didn't hide anything. "Grace's mom, in my family, no one really likes me, I ran away from home." Grace's mom was taken aback, then apologized. "Alice, I'm sorry, Auntie shouldn't have spoken out of turn, please don't mind." I sniffled and gave Grace's mom a reassuring smile. "Grace's mom, it's okay, even though my family doesn't love me, I love myself a lot." Chapter 16. During the time I stayed at Grace's house, I deeply felt the warmth of a family. Grace's mom treated me well. Whatever she prepared for Grace, she would also prepare for me. I could tell that Grace's mom genuinely treated me like her own daughter. I wanted to repay this kindness, but giving money directly didn't feel right, and I couldn't think of a good way. One day, when Grace's mom came home from work, her expression was very somber. She said she might lose her job. It started because her boss had made inappropriate advances towards her, and Grace's mom didn't stand for it. She reported it to the authorities, but without direct evidence, it was left unresolved. I kept this in mind. A few days later, Grace's mom, who had been preoccupied with worries, came home from work and finally smiled. She couldn't wait to share the good news with us. "Ranron, Anon, let me tell you, I got a promotion today. Our company was actually bought by someone else, that annoying boss was also kicked out, and I was lucky enough to get a promotion. Good things come in pairs, haha, the heavens have eyes, all my years of hard work have paid off." Grace's mom was overjoyed. She was an optimist. "Come, here are gifts for you." Grace's mom took out 2 packaged bags, each containing a pretty little dress. Grace's mom, "Congratulations." I pretended not to know anything. But when Grace's mom went to take a shower, Grace grabbed my hand and quietly asked, "Alice, did you buy these?" I was taken aback. Truly a clever female lead. I didn't hide the truth, as we were planning to start a business together later. Yes, it was me. Once I admitted it, Grace felt embarrassed, stuttering. "Alice, actually, I've been wanting to ask, you seem quite wealthy." I had been waiting for her to ask me for a long time, just didn't expect this girl to be quite patient. "Ranron, I'll be honest with you, I won a jackpot from the lottery before." Grace's eyes widened. "How much did you win?" I gestured with my hand a number. Grace's eyes widened even more. 5 million? I shook my head. "Bolder." She stretched her neck. 50 million? I no longer beat around the bush. 500 million. "What?" Grace exclaimed, then fainted. Chapter 17. When Grace woke up, I told her my plan. "Grace, I'll be honest with you, I want to start a business with you using this money." Grace was probably still in shock. When she heard my plan, she lacked confidence. Alice, start a business, the two of us, is that possible? Definitely possible, you're a top student. Then I asked, Grace, what kind of business do you think has more potential in the future? I already knew the answer, but I wanted to hear Grace's own understanding. Grace thought about it seriously for a long time and finally shared her views. I think the industries of artificial intelligence and new energy vehicles have great potential. I clapped my hands excitedly. Great! Let's invest in these two areas, and when we graduate, you can be the CEO. Seeing how serious I was, Grace panicked and quickly advised me. Alice, these are just my personal thoughts. Don't invest recklessly. What if we lose money? I smiled and said, I trust you, we won't lose. Under my gaze, Grace's pretty face blushed quietly. Chapter 18. The final mock exam before the college entrance examination. My grades improved rapidly. This time, I unexpectedly made it into the top 100, which, according to previous year's scores, was already a good score. Teachers were amazed by my progress. The class teacher publicly praised me. This is the final sprint stage, make sure to focus all your thoughts on studying. This will determine the kind of life you'll have in the future. Learn from Alice, she has made the most progress this time. Then she changed the subject. You are high school students now, the most important thing is studying. Don't waste your time and energy on love affairs. Wait until you're in university to start dating. Although the class teacher didn't mention anyone by name, everyone knew she was referring to Elisa. This time, Elisa's grades dropped the most severely. She had always been in the top 50 of the year, but this time she didn't even make it into the top 200. This was quite predictable. While I was studying hard with Grace during this period, Elisa was naturally not idle. She put all her energy into making Carter like her more. She had no interest in studying. She even gave up playing the piano, which she had loved since she was young. Knowing the plot, knowing Carter's preferences, Elisa did succeed in making Carter like her more and their relationship grew stronger. During this time, they often skipped classes to go on dates. Elisa, taking advantage of being Carter's girlfriend, also became increasingly arrogant. She sensed that the class teacher was indirectly referring to her. So, in front of the whole class, she said, Teacher, you're right. Ordinary students should indeed focus on studying hard to get into a good university. But have you ever thought that some people can live a wealthy life even without studying hard? As for my boyfriend Carter, even if he doesn't study well, he has billions of family assets waiting for him to inherit. And as his girlfriend, the future Mrs. Smith, naturally, I will enjoy the same luxuries. Do we still need to study hard? Elisa's open defiance made the class teacher quite angry, and he angrily kicked her out of the classroom. Get out. This is a place for learning, not your paradise for fishing for wealthy partners. With a proud look, Elisa, carrying her Chanel handbag, swayed out of the classroom. When she reached the door, she glanced at me and sarcastically remarked, Some of you, even if you study hard and get into a good university, so what? In the end, you'll still end up working for us wealthy people, right? If you're a girl, you might as well find a wealthy man to marry early. Chapter 19. Carter and Elisa became more and more unruly at school. During a break, Elisa rushed to the platform in front of the whole school and confessed her love to Carter. This was a blatant provocation. The school leaders could no longer tolerate it and called their parents. That day, Carter's family didn't come, only my mom arrived. After listening to the teacher's complaint, my mom didn't care at all, she just said, It's the modern age, what's wrong with students falling in love? You are supposed to be educators, why do you have such futile thoughts? Or is it because you envy my son-in-law for being wealthy? Even if you envy, it's useless, because your daughter can't charm men like my daughter. The teacher intended for my mom to educate Elisa, but instead, my mom scolded her. The teacher fell silent. In the end, she just said, Fine. Chapter 20. This was the first time I met my mom after running away from home. She didn't even look at me, just asked Elisa beside her. Elisa, where has this unfilial daughter been enjoying herself lately? Elisa smiled brightly. What enjoyment. She's just cramped in a rundown rental with a girl from our school. My mom nodded. Indeed, I felt she was a harbinger of misfortune when I was pregnant with her. There's no such thing as a destiny of wealth and luxury. Even though I've told myself countless times not to care anymore. But listening to their conversation at this moment, my heart still aches as if being cut by a knife. My mom continued. We've moved to the grand villa bought by Mr. Smith for us. Some people shouldn't come back once they leave, or they'll bring misfortune to our home again. Looking at my mom's expression. At that moment, I felt completely relieved. I smiled. From start to finish, I never said a word to her. Chapter 21. The day before the exam break, Grace and I went to the KTV to relax and sing. Unexpectedly, when it was time to pay the bill, we ran into Carter and Elisa. However, the two of them were currently arguing. Carter, how could you treat me like this? You clearly said you only love me. Elisa was furious at the moment, tears rolling down her face. Across from her, Carter was drinking, with a flirtatious girl sitting next to him. Facing Elisa's accusations, Carter was getting a bit impatient, but he still patiently said, Elisa, I do love only you. I'm just fooling around with her. Since you got pregnant, I can't do anything to you. I have my difficulties. Hearing Carter mention the pregnancy, Elisa's face showed a hint of guilt. Obviously, Carter didn't want to have a child at this age. Elisa softened her stance a bit, speaking softly. Carter, then you have to promise me that you're just playing around with these women. Carter waved his hand, continuing to drink his alcohol. Elisa, don't worry, I will always only love you, and I will only marry you in the future. With Carter's assurance, Elisa felt much more at ease. When she turned around, she noticed us looking at her. At first, she felt embarrassed, but then she confidently walked over to Grace and me. I'm already carrying Carter's baby. The title of Mrs. Smith can only belong to me. You can't take it away. Listening to Elisa's words, Grace and I glanced at each other, then we both smiled. I replied casually. Sure, Carter is yours. Please make sure you lock him down and don't let him cause trouble. Feeling aggrieved, Elisa clearly wanted to find a sense of accomplishment from me, but after talking to me, her expression became even uglier. Chapter 22. The college entrance exam results were out. Grace was undoubtedly the top scorer. Top universities were competing for her. Grace, however, was not in a rush. She just delayed making a decision, saying she needed more time. I knew she was waiting to see where I applied. My scores weren't too bad. I barely made it to a decent school. As for Elisa and Carter, I hadn't seen them since that day at the KTV. I heard that both of them didn't take the college entrance exam. When I went to pick up my admission notice, Elisa updated her social media. Family, I'm married. This is the ring my husband bought for me. I said diamonds are a tax on intelligence, but he insisted on buying it for me. My husband is really silly. The circle of friends showed Elisa and Carter's wedding selfie. Elisa looked happy, and the dove-egg diamond ring on her finger was particularly dazzling. Looking at the background of the photo, the location of their wedding was overseas. I wasn't surprised by this. As mentioned in the plot, the Smith family has been passing down for generations, and it's not easy to have a child. So, the men of the Smith family are all unfaithful. Whoever gets pregnant becomes the lady of the Smith family. Although Elisa finally married Carter as she wished, will she truly be happy? After all, Carter is a playboy. In the original plot, the male lead only turns around near the end. Chapter 23. Grace and I were getting ready to go to City B for university. Our company was also planning to be set up there. Before going to City B, Grace and I were celebrating and drinking at a bar. I managed the overall direction while Grace handled the details. In a short time, through investments, I had a small increase in my funds. I was enjoying my wine when suddenly a call came in. It was a relative, and they started off by saying, Alice, your parents are both dead. I was stunned. The relative continued to explain what had happened. It went like this: due to the relationship with the Smith family, my parents also got carried away. Seeing my father living in a mansion, the woman he kept outside couldn't sit still, insisting on living in the mansion with their son, who she was carrying. My father was always the emperor at home, never caring about my mother. He actually brought his mistress back to the mansion, wanting her to live with my mom. My father thought my mom would continue as she did before, not daring to show any resentment towards him. But he was wrong. After my mother got a son-in-law with money, she became a lot bolder and immediately started arguing with my father. "You've been married to me for so many years, yet you never gave the family a son. Now you have the nerve to get angry." These words shocked my mother, and she stared hatefully at the pregnant mistress. "A son, right? Since you want a son so badly, I won't let you have one." My mother suddenly turned fierce and pushed the mistress off the second floor. The mistress died on the spot. My father went crazy instantly, rushed to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and in the chaos, he killed my mother. Finally, he jumped off the building. After hearing the relative's story, I still didn't say a word. They thought I was too heartbroken to speak. They tried to console me. "Alice, don't be too sad. Your health is the most important." After hanging up the phone, I, who had been silent, suddenly raised my glass and addressed everyone. "Today's entire bill is on me, Alice." The crowd cheered loudly. Chapter 24. Seeing Carter and Elisa again. It was 4 years later. Grace and I had already graduated from university. Through our previous efforts, we achieved remarkable success in the fields of artificial intelligence and new energy. Our company also went public successfully. Encountering Carter and Elisa. It was at a cocktail party. Carter had already taken over the family business, dressed in a black suit, exuding a strong aura of a business elite. Although he didn't take the college entrance exam, Carter's family spent a lot of money to send him abroad for further studies. Despite his grandeur, Carter's brows were deeply furrowed. Beside him, Elisa was dressed elegantly, but she seemed to have lost some weight. While I was chatting with other company bosses, I suddenly heard Elisa's voice from behind. "Alice, what are you doing here?" Elisa was particularly shocked, clearly unable to understand how I could appear at such a high-class cocktail party. After a moment of hesitation, Elisa seemed to figure it out and then sarcastically remarked, "Oh, I see, you must be a staff member at this party." She then raised her hand, extended her leg, and said arrogantly, "Alice, my shoe is dirty, kneel down and clean it for me." At that moment, the CEO Colin next to me spoke up. He stared at Elisa with a dumbfounded expression and said, "Mrs. Smith, do you know who this is? She is the chairperson of Alice and Grace Group, the person President Carter has been trying hard to meet. Currently, only she can help the Smith family out of its predicament." "What?" Elisa's face went pale. Carter appeared at this moment, glaring fiercely at Elisa, his voice cold. "Why don't you apologize to our esteemed guest?" Feeling threatened by Carter's anger, Elisa looked very aggrieved. "Carter, you want me to apologize to her? You know exactly who she is." Carter remained expressionless, his aura dark and heavy as he simply said, "I only know that she is now the chairperson of Alice and Grace Group, the lifeline of our company." Seeing Carter's serious expression, Elisa knew he meant business and reluctantly said to me, "I'm sorry, please forgive me." Without even glancing at Elisa, I just casually chatted with the CEO next to me. Apologies are just lip service. Where's the sincerity? Shouldn't there be a gesture of kneeling down? "Yes, yes, yes," the CEOs all echoed in agreement. Carter's voice grew even deeper. "Elisa, kneel." Elisa was startled, her eyes instantly reddening with tears, looking at Carter with a sense of grievance. "Carter, I kneel." But Carter seemed possessed at that moment, his expression chillingly cold. Elisa dared not say anything more and slowly knelt down. Her pent-up grievances erupted at that moment. She burst into tears directly, shaking violently all over. Seeing Elisa kneel, Carter then turned to me, his voice very respectful. "CEO Alice, are you willing to invest in our company now?" I finished the red wine in my glass, then revealed a surprised expression. "President Carter, are you hearing things? When did I ever say I would invest in your company?" Carter's face immediately turned ashen. Chapter 25. A few months later, the Smith family went bankrupt. I had expected this. Despite graduating from a prestigious foreign university, Carter lacked substance. Yet, he was obstinate, unwilling to heed advice from industry insiders. Bankruptcy was inevitable. In the original plot, it was the female lead who helped him through the tough times, but now, the person by his side was Elisa. Elisa never even attended university. What help could she provide? Even if she suddenly realized her mistakes and recalled some business-related plots to assist Carter. But it was too late. I wouldn't give him a chance to turn things around. In this circle. Without my consent. Who would dare to help the Smith family? Chapter 26. I received news about Elisa again. She had died. Died at the hands of Carter she had always been fixated on. Ironically, after the Smith family went bankrupt, Elisa refused to endure hardship with him and instead ran into the arms of a wealthy older man. Carter realized he had been cheated on. This prodigal son of the world. In a fit of rage, he set the older man's mansion ablaze. Chapter 27. At night, I dreamt of Elisa. She questioned. Why are we both awake in supporting roles, yet our endings are different? I chuckled in response. Because your brain is full of crap, she retorted. But in my mind, it's clearly the male lead. Look. She's quite clever. Chapter 28. Elisa and my mother spent their whole lives looking for a backer. But they didn't realize that they themselves were the greatest support.